Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bonnie Vandermeulen, Training Coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. On behalf of our entire Wisconsin Facets staff, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is entitled Post-Secondary Transition Planning, or our PTP, for parents. It's my pleasure today to introduce Lene Javis. Lene is the Central Regional Coordinator for the Transition Improvement Grant and supports districts at CESA 5 and 6. She has 17 plus years of experience working with all ages of the special needs population, serving in various roles: vocational rehabilitation case management, high school and middle school cross-categorical teacher and transition coordinator, and statewide regional transition coordinator. Lene is an enthusiastic and energetic individual who wholeheartedly believes students achieve personal success when a team approach and best practices are utilized to create a quality transition plan. Again, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Lene. Lene?
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about the Post-Secondary Transition Plan, otherwise known as the PTP. So it's my hope that through participating in today's webinar, you will gain a better understanding of the overall PTP process, moving from compliance to best practice, along with an increased knowledge of and how to access various transition tools, resources that promote increasing student outcomes. So there's much research out there that supports positive outcomes associated with family engagement. Here are a few points captured from research done by Karen Mapp and Joyce Epstein. When families are involved, students have higher grades, test scores, and graduation rates. They have better attendance and are more motivated and less likely to be suspended from school. We also see a decrease in use of drugs, alcohol, and violence. In addition, when middle and high school families stay involved, students make better transitions not only from the middle to the high school, but from the high school to the adult world as well. Their quality of work is maintained, they create realistic plans for the future, and are more likely to graduate high school and seek post-secondary education. Research also shows significant associations between parents' expectations and these post-secondary outcomes. These high expectations are important for parents, but also need to be a common thread among the whole IEP team. So for instance, the teachers, the school counselor, outside agencies, and let's not forget the most important team member, the student. There are many opportunities and resources schools can offer along with outside agency collaboration that truly can foster these positive outcomes. Trainings for families such as PIP and YIPI helps families to know resources and possibilities for their youth, as well as helping students know what their strengths and talents are. We'll discuss some of these opportunities when we take a look at the pre-employment transition services later on in this presentation. So as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This truly depicts what transition is all about, as it's extremely individualized process. There are many different options, and the path that a student takes is determined by various factors, such as age, readiness of the student, goals, dreams, preferences, strengths, interests, and needs. Transition is not a straight path. To truly meet the needs of each student, you need to take a look at different options and various routes. Okay, before we go on anymore with the presentation, we do need to take a look at a few of the many acronyms that you will find in the wonderful world of special education. Honestly, I do not know of any other professional practice other than special education where acronyms are used more than actual words. It's like acronym alphabet soup out there, right? That said, here are a few that we will be talking about today. So the first one listed on there is IEP, and that stands for the Individual Education Program. The next is PTP, Post-Secondary Transition Plan, and that becomes part of the Individual Education Program, the IEP, at age 14. Third on the list there is ACP, Academic Career Plan. And back in 2017, the law changed in Wisconsin that at the age, any student, not just students with disabilities, but all students at age 12 in the school system take part in this academic and career planning process. PREETS is Pre-Employment Transition Services, and we'll get into those a little bit later. WIOA is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. I'll speak on that as well. And then SOP, Summary of Performance, and that is a summary of a child's academic achievement and functional performance, which includes recommendations on how to assist the child in meeting the child's post-secondary goals. And that SOP piece happens during the child's last year in high school. So what is the PTP? As part of your child's education and IEP process, the Post-Secondary Transition Plan, also known as the PTP, was developed for students at age 14 and older. It is a legal part of the IEP, and your IEP meetings will now include conversations on planning for future goals, not just yearly IEP goals. You can find a link to the PTP demo site on the Indicator 13 transition webpage on the Department of Public Instruction's website, which mirrors the actual PTP platform teachers use to create the plan. However, TIG also created, as you can see over here to the right, a great tool for families to more easily engage in the planning process called the Wisconsin Transition Planning app. This is a way to learn about the transition planning as you answer specific questions about your child. And when you use it, we kind of encourage family and students to do them separately when appropriate and compare them. It's kind of neat. TIG also has an entire page dedicated to the Wisconsin Transition app, along with additional resources, such as a paper copy of the application. And this is also where you will find that the app can be uploaded or downloaded from the iTunes Store or Google Play. And again, I'll show links to that the slide further down. Okay, so what are the steps or components of the PTP? The chart at the right here shows all the different pieces that the PTP encompasses. So the PTP is also known, just so you may hear these words, so I want to share this with you. Indicator 13, okay? So Indicator 13 is transition planning or transition services based on DPI. So it's also known as the transition planning. It's a compliance indicator, meaning that the U.S. Department of Education expects 100% of students at age 16 and older to have a transition plan that meets all of these 7 areas. Now, if you notice, I just said at age 16, not to confuse you, but the federal law states that this has to be done at 16. Wisconsin, we in Wisconsin have decided to adopt this, and we're saying at age 14. So at age 14, this process has to be part of the IEP. These components, like I said, off here to the right, are pieces of the post-secondary transition plan. So let's take a look at it. First one is the student invite. Student has to be invited to the meeting. Next is the age-appropriate transition assessment. It's what drives the overall process. So it's an assessment to find out the needs, interests, strengths, and what does the student want to do. So it's age-appropriate transition assessment. And it needs to be done every single year to complete this overall process. Then based on how the assessment comes out, you do measurable post-secondary goals. And there's 3 goals that come out of there, 2 of which have to be done. The first one is education and or training. The second one is employment. And then the third is independent living, and that one's done when appropriate. As I said, the first 2 have to be done. Measurable post-secondary goals mean what does a student want to do after high school? Next is the annual goal. The annual goal is actually in the IEP. So it's one of the IEP goals. There needs to be one in that links to these measurable post-secondary goals, shows that the student is working towards whatever skill set that will help them to meet their measurable post-secondary goals. Next, outside agency collaboration, who should be at the table? Should there be people that are invited to this meeting? The third is transition services, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit more in a minute. And then next are course of study. So what are the types of classes and courses they will take, your child will take as they progress throughout the education system. So going back to transition services is if you come on over here, I put revise. And the reason for that is transition services were revised when WIOA came about. So what is WIOA? WIOA is known as the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's a federal law that was passed in July of 2014 that included new responsibilities for schools and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, also known as DVR, to support students and youth with disabilities to transition from school to college and or competitive integrated employment. WIOA has specific requirements to make sure students with disabilities receive transition services to help them reach their goals after they graduate from high school. WIOA requires for schools went into effect in July of 2016. So here are the different categories. You have 1, job exploration services, 2, work-based learning experiences, 3 is post-secondary and higher ed related services, 4 is social independent living skills and training for the home, and 5 is social and independent living skills training for community, and then last but not least, 6 is instruction and self-advocacy. So let's go on to the next and see how we broke this down into another resource. So TIG created this pre-employment transition service resource, which shows how the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction aligned transition services in the PTP with the requirements of WIOA to help students and families in making these choices. So the piece of WIOA, the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation is the other agency responsible for carrying out the requirements of WIOA. So what does this mean? This means that if your child is working with DVR, meaning that your child has an assigned DVR counselor, you went through the application process, the orientation, your student now is working with a DVR counselor, they have what is called an IPE, Individual Plan for Employment. That's what they create when they work with a DVR counselor. Those services, these different categories are the same that are services that the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation offers. With the exception, we broke out these 2 categories. So let me go ahead and pull this over because you have a link to this, but let me go ahead and do this. So here are the 6 different categories that I had read from on the previous slide. So what I didn't get into, underneath each of these categories are activities. As a matter of fact, they're evidence-based activities that we know through research that if said activity is done with student, the likelihood of their skill set increasing in that category area increases dramatically. So again, we have these 6 different categories. So if you go on into this resource, you will see category 1, job exploration. I can almost talk. Job exploration counseling. Under here are several different, as a matter of fact, 22 activities, suggested activities based off of research that if your student participates in these, the likelihood of them succeeding with that job exploration increases. So if you go through each one of these categories, you can see different types of activities that are suggested while the student is still in school to participate in. Again, you want to match the activities with those measurable post-secondary goals. What do they want to do after school? So what should we be doing now while they're still in school to help them meet their needs? So we strongly encourage parents and educators alike to go ahead and download this resource and take a look at each of these activities. Now, just because there's several different activities underneath each one of these categories, does that mean that your child has to do every one of these in order to be successful when you're out of high school? Absolutely not. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is, hey, These are some activities. What does your child want to do after school? Where do they see themselves? How are we, again, as I mentioned, while they're still in school, how are we going to get them there? So let's take a look. There's a bunch of different activities laid out here that you can align with those post-school goals and have them participate in. Okay. All right. So next, I know I explained quite a bit and went quite quickly, but now I'm gonna share this activity with you because we feel it's a really fun activity. Actually, the TIG grant and WISPE, Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educator Initiative, a few of us got together and said, you know, let's make this explaining this process fun in a more, you know, in layman's terms, you know, let's put it all together. So what we did is we came up with this placemat, ingredients for successful IEP transition planning. You have a link in, Bonnie shared a link with you, so you'll have a PDF of this. So those breakouts that I explained earlier on earlier slides, it's all embedded here. So let's go through this process and see it from this angle. Okay, so here we have it. The pizza box represents the IEP. Okay, so this is the IEP. Next, inside this pizza box, right, you have the cardboard pizza place. That's the PTP transition plan. It's inside that IEP. Next is the dough. And who represents the dough? The student. And why? Well, you have a bunch of different dough, right? You could have wheat dough, you could have gluten-free dough, you could have thick dough, you could have thin dough, hand tossed, all different kinds of dough, right? Represents the student because what happens when you put that dough in the oven? It rises. And just as it rises, so do students as they go through the education. Next comes the age-appropriate transition assessment. You can either have a formal assessment or informal. That's the sauce, There's many different types of sauces. You have red sauce, white sauce, thick sauce, thin sauce, spicy sauce, all different kinds of sauces. You don't use the same sauce every year. You use a different sauce every time you make a pizza, right? And in this case, for age-appropriate transition assessment, you use a different sauce every year. And why do you do that? Because you're trying to find out the preferences, interests, needs, and strengths of the student. What does the student not know about themselves or your child not know about themselves? That determines what assessment you use. And then you can see on here, we also have the academic and career plan. That does not take the place of an age-appropriate transition assessment, but it does help to enhance the assessment because you can go ahead and use information that you glean or get from that academic and career plan and fuse that and share that along with the age-appropriate transition assessment. So here we have the sauce going onto the pizza, right? And as I mentioned before, it's through the sauce, the age-appropriate assessment, that's how you create these measurable post-secondary goals. Again, measurable post-secondary goals, meaning 1 year or after high school. I had mentioned there's 3 of them. Here they are. So the top 2 have to be created. The third one, when appropriate. It's an IEP team decision. So here you have education and or training. So a measurable goal in there, post-secondary goal there. Employment, and then independent living, if appropriate. So what would be an appropriate independent living? If a student wants to live on campus, or if they want to live in an apartment on their own, is there a need for setting up a goal and help them work towards skill development to achieve that? So some things to kind of think in mind are medication. Does your child need help with taking medication? Are they good with making appointments? Can they live on their own safely? So those are kind of things that you want to kind of keep in mind when that independent living goal comes up. Next, but not least is the cheese. Guess who's the cheese? The IEP team is the cheese. So these cheeses on the left here, they have to be at that IEP team meeting, right? They have to be part of it. So a parent or guardian must be there, and the student too. You can see the does there. The student has to be there too. So I want to be clear on that. A district LEA person has to be at that meeting. A special ed teacher needs to be there, as well as a general education teacher. Then you can have the flexibility to invite some other cheese people. You could have related service providers, or you may include outside agencies. Why do we choose those cheese for that? Because what happens when you put the pizza in the oven to the cheese? What happens to it? It melts together. And we as an IEP team need to melt together, to work together, and we stick to the student, right? The student's the dough. We're with you, and that sauce is in there because that's the whole age-appropriate transition assessment that's driving it based on how the student answers those questions. So then let's get into these pre-employment transition services, the pre-ed. So here we go. There, look at, we've got some sausage. That's the first pre-ed, job exploration and counseling services. Or maybe we need to have some pepperoni. That's the next category, work-based learning experiences. Next is onions. Maybe we have to have some onions, post-secondary and higher education related services. Or maybe we need some mushrooms. Social and independent living skills at home. Or possibly maybe a couple black olives, right? Maybe some social and independent living skills in the community. And last but not least, you have green peppers, and that represents instruction and self-advocacy. So again, on the slide, previous slide, when we went through the pre-eds, I showed that there were various types of activities underneath each one of these categories. So again, maybe one year you have a full pepperoni pizza because you have a lot of work-based learning experience activities you're doing. Or maybe another year you have, you know what, we have that going on, and we also have social and independent living skills in the home. We're working on some of those skills. So you have pepperoni and mushroom. Or maybe you have pepperoni and sausage because you're doing some job exploration and counseling things. So again, the point here is your pizza is going to look different every year. Maybe one year you have a Supreme and you have them all. And maybe one year you just have, like I said, like a pepperoni pizza. And it's okay. It's based on what does the student need. So be thinking about those activities that they need that should be embedded in that multi-year transition plan. Next comes the course of study. The course of study is like the baking instructions. Just as I mentioned before, you're going to have different pizzas for different years. And that kind of resembles the years that you go through school, right? Your freshman classes are much different than what you would take your senior year, right? And as you go through classes, there's more and more openings for those elective courses. So you get more flexibility. So that's like the baking instructions. So it's going to be different every year based on where the student is at with meeting those academic pieces, you know, what types of courses that they need to take and pass for their diploma, as well as having those fun elective courses, maybe those co-op opportunities or work-based learning opportunities as they grow older. So that's like the baking instructions. Next comes the tent, the table tent. So that represents the annual IEP goal. So again, I mentioned earlier, there has to be a goal in the IEP, an annual IEP goal that helps to bridge or shows that it's working towards helping the student reach their measurable post-secondary goal. So it has to link. And then you have age of majority, and that's the bill, so to speak, because now, you know, when the older you get, the more money you make, and now they can have the bill, right? So age of majority is the bill. And what we're covering there is what you really want to be thinking of is we have to let you know when your child turns 17, right? And then the year they turn 17. And then we also need to remind you, hey, next year, that following year, it will be turning 18. And what does that age of majority look like? Because truly, a student goes from IDA, which is entitlement, to ADA, which is eligibility. So how does that all play into this overall age of majority piece? What does it mean that when an individual turns 18? One thing I want to point out here that I think is really important is there is the piece of guardianship. Guardianship is a piece of it, but we really promote the supported decision making, and this is why. Let me give you a great definition of supported decision making. It's an alternative to guardianship through which people use friends, family members, and professionals to help them understand situations and choices to face, so they make their own decisions without the need of guardianship. It's an emerging approach to providing decision-making assistance without imposing any long-term limitations on rights or personal liberties. So if you go right to guardianship right away, you can't, to change that, to go to a judge and say, oh, I don't think we need full guardianship, good luck doing that. That's not going to happen. So it's really important to take a look at different avenues, and the best way to do that is take a look at that supported decision making first, and then go through the process and determine, what is best for your child. So that was the fun way of explaining the overall post-secondary transition planning process. And as I promised, here is the link to the transition app and the supplemental materials. And it also shows you can get stuff from the iTunes store or the Google Play Store. So these can be uploaded, and look for this logo. And since we have time, I'm going to go ahead and go into that. So here is the actual app. So in here, you have instructions. It'll show you how to go through the whole app, if you need that. And then frequently asked questions, and I do want to pull that up. Come on. In here, there are direct links to various resource and outside agency people that really can help in moving the transition plan forward for your child. So, and it explains the overall process. We talked about age appropriate assessment. So if I click on there, it goes right to it. What is it? What does it mean? And so forth. So this is a great resource right here, just the frequently asked questions for parents to take a peek at if you are wanting to learn more about the overall plan and what transition all means. So let me see if it'll let me go back. Oh, would you know it? It doesn't, but that's okay because we can just do this. Okay, so then again, you can walk through the plan by taking it. It'll ask a series of questions. And then what happens at the end of this is you get a draft post-secondary transition plan that your child can bring to the IEP meeting. And what happens is the actual those pre-employment transition services are all automatically pulled based on how your child answers these questions, and then embedded in that draft PTP. And it is in the actual verbiage that the regular PTP system that the teacher uses. It's the same words. So this is a really nice piece to use. So if you get a chance, please do check that out. Oops. Next, we have resources for different agencies that can help. So feel free to reach out to those, and there's direct links. And then I had mentioned PIP and YIPI. So PIP stands for Parents in Partnership, and then YIPI is Parents with Youth in Partnership with Parents for Empowerment. These two folks, oh my goodness sakes, are outstanding opportunities for parents to participate in. If you really want to immerse yourself in the transition planning process and learn about different organizations, and just ways to help your child in moving forward. This is a really strong program. I really recommend taking a look and finding out more about it. Try to attend one of these if you can. It is life-changing. They've got to be on, I don't know, 16, 17 years now. I was around when they did the very first one and was lucky enough to participate in some of these. And when I say it's life-changing, it absolutely it is. It's networking for parents and students, meet other people and they form relationships. It's so powerful. So please do take a look at this and reach out if you have questions. So at this time, I will open it up for questions, and also quick show at the end here. Here are the TIG regional coordinator people who you can reach out to that can help you with any transition planning questions that you may have as well. So I don't know if we have any questions in the chat.
Actually, we do have some questions that I received, Lene, and I can start to read some of them to you if you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first is, can Lene give an example of what she said, that there needs to be an annual goal related to measurable post-secondary goals? Is this something like increasing reading, for example?
Sure, and that's a great example right there, right? Because think about that in terms of the skill set. What skill set do you need when you leave school, right? And so a person with a disability, if they're working on their reading, right, to get their reading level higher, absolutely, that could tie into whatever career goal that they want to do after school. Because what is the reading level and what is the requirements for that said career, and if they're going to go on for additional education at a college or whatnot, what level does that need to be at? So absolutely, that ties in.
Okay, I do have another question for you. How do we find the link? Well, this is probably for me and for you, about the definitions and some of the examples. I did repaste the information in the chat box for those links, and I also put them in the question box. And if you did not see them, people, let me know, this is Bonnie, and I will please send them to you. So if you weren't able to access them, let me know. Okay, another comment. I've heard great things about Yippee, but they don't seem to offer anything in my area. Do you have insight into the differences between PIP and Yippee?
Yes, okay, that's a great question. Both of them are great. Yippee, the difference is from PIP and Yippee is Yippee, the students are part of the process and you stay overnight. So there's like 5 different times throughout the year that you'll go to some hotel, and like a Friday night and Saturday. So Friday night you'll have training, and then Saturday it's all day training, and then you split out. The parents go in one room and do training, and then the students go in another room and do training on whatever activity or category that you're talking about. It could be independent living, it could be Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR services. It could be the one they do a lot on the PTP, do just one training on the PTP, what is it, and so forth. So it all relates to transition planning. The beautiful thing on both of these, you can't go wrong on either. Okay, so I want to be very clear on that. Both are great. And what happens is that networking. So now you're in and with a group of people that meet several times throughout the year, and you get to know the parents, and you get to talk to them. And the individuals who run this also have students or they have a child with a disability. So it just helps to be able to talk, when someone else has gone through the overall process. You just learn so much, and you also it's support, right? You can call someone because you get to know these people, and if you're struggling with whatever, you give them a call because you become that close. So with the piece on where they said that it's not always offered in your area, go ahead and give Martha DeYoung a call, and her information is on that flyer, and talk to her. Maybe it's something, if you can get enough interest in that area, maybe they could hold it there. But I would definitely reach out and let them know that you're interested.
Okay, another comment. What should I enter on Google Play to find the Wisconsin Transition app? I tried Wisconsin Transition app, but it couldn't find it.
On the Google Play?
That's what it said.
That's strange. You should be able to put Wisconsin, just put WI, put it all together, WI transition together, see if it comes up on there. That should, but I'll double check in that. That should definitely come up.
Okay, and then this one is, I sort of believe for me and for you. I have a relative who's working today and unable to attend, but really wanted to. How can she see the presentation? There are two ways. She can register after the fact, and we'll get an electronic copy of our webinar for today, or just so that you know, the person who's attending at this point, you can share your copy with her after you receive yours after the live presentation today. That should come to you approximately 2 to 3 hours after we complete the webinar today. So moving again, we have another question for you. In many places through the state, there are tribal partners. And then it says vocational rehabilitation for Native Americans. They can partner with families and DVR for pre-EPS.
Oh, absolutely. And I should have had that. I should have spelled that out better in this presentation, honestly. But absolutely, absolutely. So I'll have to make changes to that. That should have been in there. I couldn't agree more. So for tribal communities, yes, yes. You have Verna that can help out with these pre-EPS and pre-employment transition services. So please do reach out, and whomever put that in the chat, thank you, and I will make sure to spell that out. I had that in another presentation, but for some reason it didn't get brought over to this, but that, yes, yes, and yes. And so I'll add, what I will do, Bonnie, as a matter of fact, I will change that, and I will add that, I will send you a link to that so you can send that out to people who participated here today, and I will also add that to the resources page. So again, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I think I just got another question. Oh, the person said, thank you for doing that. They appreciate that. I do have a comment for you. One of the people have mentioned the fact that sometimes it's frustrating for them because some of the personnel in their school district really aren't as up to date as even some of the parents. So how do you suggest bringing some of the people at the district together so that they're understanding more about what's offered, because TIG offers lots of things?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And you know, that just goes back to that picture that I showed of the different arrows. It's muddy, it's messy. Transition planning is muddy, messy. It's a beautiful process though, folks. And I've seen that throughout too, right? We can't all be experts in all things. My recommendation to that truly is bring the people to the table and have that open conversation. Just if you come at it from a standpoint of, hey, let's talk. And there's other things out there, or there's other pieces that I'd really like my child to be part of, and this is where I'm coming from it, not coming in with you know, anger, but coming in from the standpoint of we're all in this together. So we really, truly, you know, we got to leave that ego piece at the door, come to the table, and just have a heart-to-heart conversation. And you know what, folks, if you're a parent coming in and you know more, awesome, share. That's how we're going to get this to grow. Transition is community building at its finest. So if a teacher is coming across or not as knowledgeable, help them out. Help them out. Just say, hey, I know of this, or that. We're all in this together. And that's how we're going to grow. And that's how we're going to make change and help individuals the best, is if we work together. So I really, really encourage you. I had the best times when parents would just come to the table and just have a heart-to-heart conversation with me. What are your fears? What are your, what do you want to do? How can I best support you and your family? Those pieces. It's just coming to the realization that we are all in this together.
And we do have one other question for you, and I believe this comes from a parent, that she has some more personal kinds of questions that she would like to discuss with you. Can she contact you by email?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we have the TIG contacts up to any one of us on this grant can help you. We're all coordinators and do this work. So sometimes if feel free to reach out if you're not in my area and I can't answer specifically to that area, then I'll help and get the proper coordinator in on the conversation. But yes, go ahead. I'm here for you. Please feel free to reach out. Again,
Okay,
it's all about community.
right. And let me just let you know that the person who had asked the question before about not being able to access the app said that if you put WI transitions together with no space, it works. So thank you.
Woo, thank you. That's awesome.
Okay, and that's the end of the questions that I just got another one. I'll take that back. What is a good age to attend PIP or YIPI?
Sooner the better. So I know that they often say 14 or whatever, that if you can get in, get in. Don't worry about the age thing. And the reason why I say that, in a perfect world, transition happens right away, right? It's right away. The minute you have your child, transition is happening. So it's never too early to start. If it were up to the TIG people, we'd be doing this in the elementary, right? But because of the laws and whatnot, it's at age 14. But the sooner the better, because before you know it, folks, your child turns 18, and soon they're leaving school, and then how is that all set up and whatnot, and not to scare anybody too. If you're a parent on this webinar right now and you haven't started the process, please don't freak out or anything to that, because there's so many people out here to help you. And just by you attending this webinar, you're in the know now, and now you can reach out. So sooner the better, yes. But if you're a little bit later coming into the game, no worries. We're here for you, and we will all work together to do what's right for your child.
Okay, and I do have one comment that just came to. Well, here's another question. What is, let's see, hang on one second here. Can you go ahead and just explain again the difference between PIP and YIPI?
Okay, PIP is for yeah, I kind of glossed over. Sorry about that. PIP is for younger, for the younger kids, and or for if your child's younger, they generally start at like age 14 or younger, and it's for parents to get together so many times throughout the year and to talk about different transition related needs, different outside agencies, processes, health planning, and all those good things. And the difference truly is the students your child doesn't come with you for that. YIPI includes parents and the student, and it's generally, they do that at a little bit older age. So I believe it's 17. The flyer explains it really well. But that's the best, in a short way, that's the best way I can describe it.
Sure, and then one of our other participants said that PIP is working to make opportunities for families of children age 6 through 14.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So it's earlier, and I know that they don't stay overnight. I know that Yippee, you do that Friday night, Saturday, and the PIPs are generally on Saturday. It's not an overnight thing. So yes, it's way earlier. So thank you, whoever added to that. I appreciate that.
And then I just have a thank you that was written. It says, Lene, thank you. This has been so helpful.
Oh, I'm happy. And folks, again, I just want to leave you with this. I mean that from the heart. We are all in this together. And just like me missing to say Verna, the tribal part in vocational rehabilitation piece. I left that out and someone was kind enough to bring that up. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't do that purposefully, you know. So come to the table, speak. It's like, yeah, oh my gosh, I got to get that in there and I'll do that. So that's kind of, we're all in this together. Please do reach out. We're always here for you.
Okay, oh, whoops, I think I might have even another comment that just came in. So if you're willing, let's see if I can read that to you. And it says, we here at the Menominee Tribe VR, as a VR counselor, I introduced myself at the beginning. My name is Brenda. I work with IEP teams at our local high schools, and we all have meetings with the state VR people. Let's see if I can read the rest of it here, because so I would suggest looking out and searching for the surrounding native programs to collaborate. It gives more options for our students and parents.
So with that said, Brenda, if you'd be so kind as to email me what resource I should attach to this presentation that you feel would be the best outreach for that, I think that'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. So at this time, I have no more questions. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Lene?
No, just that. Thank you for participating today, and just know that we're here for you. And reach out if you should you have any questions. And no question is a silly one, because if you're asking it, someone else is probably thinking it too.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your presentation today. I know that I learned a lot, and I'm sure that those that participated with us did as well. This will conclude our webinar. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. Please be reminded that Wisconsin Facets has over 100 scheduled trainings and webinars for the year 2021. Please feel free to check out our website calendar and register for any of the upcoming trainings that you may be interested in. And please watch for the short evaluation that will be coming your way after today's live presentation. Thank you, Lene, and thank you all for joining us today. Everybody be safe, be well, and have a good day. Bye-bye.